All right, welcome to This Week in Pro Wrestling with your host, Mike Monty, and the great, well, the angry Jimmy Farrow has returned, folks.
Go on, piss off.
I miss Nice Jimmy. We were just talking
Nah.
before the show. We had Nice Jimmy for such a long time, but Angry Jimmy, ever since
Well,
that
you know what?
guy, that episode where we spoke about that guy, you've been Angry Jimmy the rest of the way through.
You know what's worse is that now the universe is not balanced because it's usually angry Monty and happy-go-lucky Jimmy. Uh-oh. Now what?
Now we got just angry birds. Dude, I got to tell you something real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you knew about this, but do you know that Costco sells hot dogs for $1.25? For $1.25, you get a big hot dog, a bun, and a drink for $1.25, dude.
Why are you not eating there all day long? I
Well,
would.
I would tell you that, yeah, I'm starting to eat there a lot, but here's the problem. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm lucky I'm alone in the studio. If you were next to me, you'd be pretty angry because I'm just like burping up hot dog smell right now.
Nice. At least it's coming out of that end and not the other.
Well, I'm not saying I didn't share that point on it, Jimmy, so.
This is a transparent show, Mike. Are you farting?
I am not farting right now, no. I have
All
in the
right.
past in studio, as you
Right?
probably well
Is
know.
that why Abe, before the show, I saw him scurry the fuck out of that room?
Abe has his own like the one thing about Tin Mirror that I love. It's like we're on our own separate islands. You know, Abe's on one side, I'm on the other. You know you're in Florida
Right.
with
Right. We can all fart. We can all fart in peace. Very nice.
You still have not answered the question, and as I have shows with you every week, being
Yeah.
from Wahoo Saloon, who is the Indian behind you, bro? Yeah.
That one's what that one right there.
The other
That's
one.
Wahoo.
No, the other one. The one that's staring me in the face.
I don't really know. It looks like the Indian version of Mona Lisa, kind of. I really don't know. I got no idea. There's just a bunch of cool Indians over here.
Can I ask you, did you find Indian women attractive?
Never thought about
American Indian, I mean.
it. Never really gave it much thought.
Well, I'm
You
asking
know,
you.
all we had.
Answer the question, Pharaoh.
All we had. I'll answer the question this way. All we had were a bunch of sports.
Uh-oh, we're having Jimmy internet problems.
Are you there?
Now you're back.
Okay.
I'm
I
so
didn't realize
used
I
to
went
I'm so
anywhere.
used to you not having internet problems when all of a sudden you have one. I'm a little shocked.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, where did I leave off with my alleged answer to this crazy question?
I don't know, but we could start over. Were you attracted to Indian women? American Indian women, I mean.
Look, any background of woman has their levels of attractiveness. I just never gave it too much thought until you asked me this weird ass question.
So what's the answer? Again.
I'm sure there are attractive Indian women out there.
I'm not saying there is or isn't. I'm asking you, are you attracted to Indian women? Man,
Are they on?
You skate more than a fucking Ranger player, dude.
Well, actually, the Ranger players skate too much. Let's not get into. Don't compare me to guys who won the President's Trophy and busted. Like I said, every background of woman, there's good-looking women. I mean, what are you trying to get at? You know, I mean, nowadays there's one woman. I mean, in the past, I never thought about Indian women. Does that clear that up?
No, it does. It's fine. So, I guess the long and short of it, though, is Pharaoh's attracted to any type of woman.
Like I said, every background's got good-looking women in them. Every single background, and men too. Obviously, for the women on the women's side of things, you know. And they also every background has big fat guys who look like Popeye and wear sailor caps. And you know, there's some real ugly people out there.
You don't have to throw cheap shots at me, bro. I didn't do anything to you. There's no reason.
You don't wear a sailor cap.
You
What
didn't
are
have
you
to throw a
talking
cheap
about?
shot at me. It's like, come on, bro. Really? Come on.
You're not fat. The
Okay.
desk is
I don't know what
the
planet
desk
you're
is
on.
hiding. How do you look nowadays? I mean, have you?
What is the
trimmed
most?
down again?
What's the worst thing that you hate about not being in studio? Do you miss drinking high noons with me?
Yeah, that sucks.
It does suck, right? But
Not sitting with you and Tony Gurria sucks.
Well, yeah. Well, again,
That sucks.
but you were in
Hey, but
spirit.
look on the bright side. I could smoke my cigarettes, right,
That
Mike?
right? So that is a solid
Ugh.
part of this.
Hey, great, great.
Oh,
That's
angry
great.
Jimmy. So angry Jimmy. Tony Khan
Yeah.
asked about Ricochet's pro wrestling status. As you know, Ricochet got his ass whooped by Braun Breaker this Monday night. AEW President Tony Khan recently spoke on the Scott Fishman of TVinsider.com on a number of topics, including WWE star Ricochet and Ricochet's status in pro wrestling. Khan says, if it's okay, I'd rather not get into wrestlers that still work for someone else. It is believed that Ricochet's contract is up, and his next destination point is AEW. Farrell, thoughts on Ricochet, the wrestler, and Ricochet deciding, if this is the case, to move on from the WWE?
Ricochet the wrestler. Ricochet the wrestler is today's prototype of what a certain portion of the fan base looks for. Technically perfect. Holy calisthenics, Batman. The guy can, flip and fly all over the place. He's in good shape. Ricochet, the persona, crap. Can't talk. Doesn't have a convincing manner of speaking. Can't. Oddly enough, in his career, to me, his zenith as far as creatively and how he was being presented appeared in Lucha Underground as Prince Puma. He never said a word. He basically never said a word. He wore an awesome Aztec mask, and sometimes a mask works and sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it was great. His mask was great. You probably recognize the mask. It was the logo for Lucha Underground. That was his mask design. He was Prince Puma, and he was fantastic. And he was champion, and he was booked as just, that was the style of wrestling that Lucha Underground was presenting most of the time, was that high-flying stuff. And he was the prototype for that. He was perfect at that. But he never came close in WWE, even though he did get his opportunities for nice pushes. He did wrestle Brock Lesnar. Am I right or wrong about that?
You're correct.
He did hold a few titles.
Intercontinental champion, right?
It's not like he didn't. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how he's leaving emotionally. If he's leaving emotionally bitter, we've seen this before. You had your opportunities. Your persona did not get over. You were popular with the fans, though, because you could really go. But you were never going to be what you think you could have been, if that's what he's thinking to himself. Like, I don't think opportunities were denied. I think opportunities were presented, and it only got so far. AEW, you know what's funny? It's ironic. This is the most we'll be talking about Ricochet until he lands there, and then you know the drill. 3 weeks later, we won't be even mentioning him because he's just going to get assimilated into that porridge of ex-WWE guys with bad booking, and that's going to be it.
Is he being worked? Are we being worked? I'm sorry, Jimmy. As I said, now they're reporting that he's injured off the Braun Breaker attack. Is this just a big game by the WWE?
If you're working us over Ricochet, I'm laughing because, this isn't something I get, emotionally involved in. I'm sure you can tell. I don't care what happens with him one way or the other. CM Punk, yeah, I pay attention, Even Chris Jericho now, I'd pay attention if something controversial was going on or if he was coming back possibly or he was in a fallout over at AEW. I'd be interested in a Jericho or a Punk. You're going to work me on Ricochet? I'm laughing at you. You can't work me on that. I don't give a crap what you do with him.
Here's what I was thinking, Jimmy. So Raw Monday night was an okay show. But the one thing I thought was probably the best. There's a couple of things that were really good about the show. Liv Morgan and Dom Mysterio, they're doing a pretty good job there. But I was very impressed by Samantha Irvin's acting as she gets into the ambulance with Ricochet. And I'm thinking to myself, if this girl has this kind of talent acting, and we've had the discussion, is she the greatest ring announcer of all time? I think I saw R.J. Hudson. It was RJ that said she's an okay announcer. That I totally disagree with. I think she's probably, when it's all said and done, will be considered one of the greatest. But this is where I think you may be wrong, Jimmy, and take me on this one. if they try to entwine Samantha Irvin into this storyline, can Samantha Irvin be the catalyst to make fans like yourself, and including yourself, interested in the character of Ricochet? So let me give you a scenario. He's really not leaving. He signed a contract. Braun Breaker destroyed him. He's really not injured. The next couple of weeks will be filled with Braun Breaker humiliating Samantha Irvin every week, scaring her. Ricochet comes back, and now you have the combo of Samantha Irvin, Ricochet. Does that garner interest for Jimmy Farrow?
As a booker that's looking towards the future of the company, it interests me as a temporary thing. If she really is as good as you say she is on the microphone being a ring announcer, she's in the process of building that career. How much do you want to sidetrack her with Ricochet? Even if he did come back, Braun Breaker must win that feud one way or the other, decisively, just like he did just now. By the way, the best match on Monday Night Raw was nothing that you're mentioning. The best match was when him and Drago destroyed each other. That was great.
Great match.
That wasn't good. That was great. And they murdered each other. And that, to me, is the future of the company, guys like that. And it's always hard to see that at first. Sometimes we don't know what direction they're going in. I remember looking at Edge in the beginning and going, why is he so favored? Eventually, if the booking is right, and it was right for him for how many years, you accept him. I was never a fan, but I accepted him. I feel like in this case with Breaker and guys like Drago, this is the beginning of that process. When the Usos first came out, remember the Usos when they first came out with their little spiel? Yep. I didn't think that they'd go anywhere near where they've gone today. But they were always booked right, and they were always protected, and they were always part of the vision. So I guess, long story short, I don't see Ricochet being the vision of the future for the company. Samantha Irvin, how would you present her? Are we going to make Ricochet a bad guy, or is he going to stay the baby face during this while his wife weeps over his battered corpse?
Would it be fair to say that Samantha Irvin is completely over with pro wrestling fans right now?
I think she's way over with you. I think she's popular, but she's an announcer, bro. I don't see her as anything more. That was a great job she did crying over his battered corpse. If we'll see where it goes. But Ricochet seems to me like the type who would want to go to AEW and be treated better by, get more love. All right. And he's not going to get it. He's going to get buried.
Let's go with your scenario there. Ricochet, 35 years old. Career's I still can go, but career's winding down. Okay, let's be fair. Ricochet, 40 years old, is not going to be this Ricochet at 35 years old. Now, knowing what you know about the professional wrestling industry and everybody out there watching knows, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Phil says, Jimmy's explanation interpretation is very insightful. Preach, brother. Well, I'm gonna tell you where I think you guys are wrong. He's 35. He's going to go with AEW. And I commend the man because he wants to be more than just – he wants to be remembered for more than he's going to be remembered for right now in his career in the WWE. We know so much about the wrestling world, right? You're in this relationship with Samantha Irvin. You're engaged. This is a case where I feel like absence doesn't make the heart grow fonder. So he goes to AEW. They're on a schedule together now. They're living a blessed life. They're both making money. He decides, hey, I'm going to chase my career. Me and her will make it. Don't worry. It's going to work out. Now, you know wrestling like I know, Jimmy. Everybody knows wrestling like we know. He goes away. The Hawks are coming around. This is a gorgeous lady with tons of talent. It's nothing but disaster for that relationship if he leaves the WWE. Agree with me or don't? What do you think?
It could be. It'd be even cooler if Braun Breaker pulls a Brock Lesnar and takes Samantha Irvin in real life. How you like them apples?
So, is it worth it?
How's that for a storyline for you?
It's not even a storyline. It's a distinct possibility, but here's the issue. Is it worth it for Ricochet to go to AEW and risk losing his relationship just so he thinks that he'll be more respected within the wrestling industry? Listen, he's not going to be Cody Rhodes. Sometimes I don't even understand the Cody Rhodes thing, but I've stand corrected at this point. He's actually selling T-shirts with regular sports stars on a high level, like he's number 8. I can't argue this, right? They've marketed Cody Rhodes incredibly, but this is a once in a lifetime deal, bro. It's not happening again with a Ricochet at 35 coming back at 39.
Right.
He's not CM Punk. So if you're Ricochet, you want to risk your relationship just to go to AEW and wrestle in New Japan. Now, common thoughts, Jimmy, would be like, well, if it's not going to make it through it, the relationship wasn't worth it. Well, no, that's not the case. When you're away from each other, you're human. Emotions happen. You meet other people. You become attracted to other people in situations where you may not have.
Right.
Is it worth it for Ricochet?
Well, look at it this way. First of all, it goes without saying that we have no clue what goes on between those two and what their relationship is, first off, okay? Daniel Bryan took a risk, didn't he? Would you have gone into AEW and taken all these headshots that he's taken after crying about, how WWE got him concussed and all this other stuff? He had to answer to the Bella twin. They're married in real life. They dealt with it. I don't know the dynamics.
But that's two different things. Brie Bella's at home.
It's a couple. No, it's not two different things. It's a couple that is not on the same schedule anymore. They were at 1.2. They were. They're not on the same schedule. They survived it. All I'm saying is I don't know their dynamic. That's it.
But this is a common sense dynamic, dude. If you're away from each other for an extended amount of time, no matter how strong you look, dude, you've dated 1 million women, right? You understand the concept of this. I'm not saying that they can't withstand it, but the odds are they won't withstand it, and it's a very high level risk in my opinion. And that's my only point. It's like maybe they can, but it's a very high level risk to go to AEW. You follow what I'm saying? He's making lots of money in the WWE. So in the end result, if he goes to AEW, is he going to be remembered as this great wrestler because he went to AEW? Fuck no. It's not like that's going to change.
It's not going to change. You're correct about that. Honestly, look, here's the truth. If either one of us were advising Ricochet, we'd tell him to stay put. He is 35. He's not going to be doing this 10 years from now. He should do this. He could probably do this for another good 5 years. And that's it. Take the money.
Jimmy, I would say book me with Samantha. Let's run this angle, and Samantha will be my manager when I come out to the ring, and she can ring announce the rest of the time. And I'm telling you, that girl is she's so over, dude. And
I have no problem with your idea. I like your idea. I mean, I'd rather see that happen than your other potential real life
I'll ask you this then. You said you're and Samantha Irvin. She's okay, right? You're always like, she's all right, right?
She's good.
Right. If every week Braun Breaker is torturing her, does that sway the Pharaoh to be fine? I know you're a Braun Breaker guy, but eventually you're just like, oh, man, someone's got to whip this dude's ass.
No way. You really think that I'll sit there and go, oh, he's so mean to her, someone's got to whip his ass, go Ricochet? That's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be like, this is great. It'll wrap me into the script for that particular storyline. And as soon as it's over, what do you do with Ricochet? He's not going to be Cody Rhodes, like you said. He's not. So what do you do with him? Because I'll tell you what they're going to do with Braun Breaker. You already know it. You see it already.
If you can build a man-woman combination that gets over. Let me ask you this. Yeah. Let's go back in time. Macho Man comes to WWE and he chooses Freddie Blassie as his manager. Or let's say they even stick with a woman and they give him Missy Hyatt. Is Macho Man the icon that he is under that scenario?
Everything should be left alone. If you tweak anything, then no, everything changes. I don't know to what degree, but the way it turned out, it was perfect. Elizabeth was perfect for him. How about this? Do you have a combo right now that you'd put together outside of this potential one you're naming? Who would you put together? Because let me tell you, the fact that Andrade was never put with Charlotte yet, this is much less sexy than that idea to me.
I'm going to agree with you 100%, and I believe when Charlotte comes back, Andrade and Charlotte will be a mixed match together. She'll be out ringside with him. He'll be out ringside with her.
Do you know how badly I used to secretly wish that Renee would team up with Dean Ambrose? Oh, my God. I wanted to see that. So it's not like I don't want to see what you're proposing. I think that'd be fine, but what do you do with him afterwards? That's my question. Because Braun Breaker is clearly heading on a path that we expect him to.
I think is if the idea works and Braun Breaker becomes extremely hated. Again, I'm not saying it works. If it does, and Ricochet returns and Samantha Irvin plays it where she's just being tortured, and people are so mad, this could be lights out for Ricochet and Braun Breaker, right? It could be a lights out type of match.
During that program, yes, but what happens afterwards?
I think if the character's strong enough and that combination's strong enough, you could carry on. Or it could end flat, and that could be it. I mean, I want to just the president, Phil DeCesare, says out there, the Grand Wizard, if he had lived, would have been a great manager for Macho Man. I'm going to have to disagree with that, dude. I think anything away from Elizabeth would have been an epic fail. Even Missy Hyatt.
I agree with that, too. I do. I don't think anybody outside of Elizabeth would have been able to do what, the level that it wound up getting to.
If I would tell you that Rhea Ripley comes back before SummerSlam and Liv Morgan, I don't know, somewhere along the line, Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio are together or whatever, could that match main event SummerSlam for the Pharaoh?
Why not?
Would you be engulfed in it? Would you be engulfed in it? Would you be like, this is an awesome main event?
I would like it. I think Liv has been great as a heel, don't you? Liv has been fantastic. I think she's been great. This whole thing with Dominic has been great.
I think Liv has done a fantastic job, and I think when Rhea comes back as the conquering hero, it's going to be crazy.
Right. You know what's unfortunate, Mike? And we both know it too. Like, we're talking about man-women combinations. And they blew it with Karrion Kross, period. Because that man-woman combination with Scarlett was fantastic in NXT. They really, really dropped one there.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to make a statement, dude. Now I realize why Karrion Kross has never made it. Like, I never understood it when I think he was in TNA for a while. I was surprised AEW didn't try to sweep him up. He just doesn't have it. As much as like he's got a great look and as much as he's pretty good on the mic and he's a good wrestler, he doesn't have it, man. He had it in NXT for a bit, but I think when Vince kind of fucked with that whole thing, it all went away and he can't get it back. Yep. And I almost feel like he doesn't take it serious enough. Like if he said to Triple H, let me shave my head, let me go back to that character, Triple H would say, go ahead. But I think he's more vain and he wants to have the long hair with the ponytail, and he's almost setting himself up to be a manager type of guy in a way. Listen, dude, he just doesn't have it. I don't even know why they're carrying him around anymore. And I got to tell you, making Scarlett go to brown hair, lost it.
They changed everything, and what's in a look? Everything. Everything's in a look. He had the great look in NXT, the bald head with the facial hair and the psychotic eyes, and he made his sentences count. They were short and sweet. He pulverized you like a villain Goldberg. You had that evil blonde bitch in the corner doing all sorts of things to help him win. Absolutely perfect. There was no reason to fuck with it, but they fucked with it. And he obviously doesn't give a shit enough about his own character and his own furthering in this business, because I'd be screaming at them what you just said. Let me shave my head. Who dyed Scarlett's hair this color? What the fuck's going on?
Bro, here's a great comment. And I know it can't be true, but Matt Sharkey's weighing in. He says Samantha Irvin and Cody Rhodes are having an affair. That's why Ricochet wants out.
Matt Sharkey hates the WWE, doesn't he?
He does, always, nonstop. He's like, this sucks.
Well,
this sucks.
At least Matt's being.
At least we realize you're out there, bro. Yeah, we read your stuff, so we read everybody's stuff.
He's very consistent. He's like the Lou Gehrig of the anti-WWE. He's like plays every game.
He does.
He's there.
He watches and he weighs in. I love it.
Yeah, Sharky.
Dude, what a great angle that would be. Cody has an affair with Samantha and Brandy comes out of retirement.
I like mine more where Braun Breaker and Samantha run off and she swerves Ricochet. I like that one even more.
I do, but you know what? Braun Breaker is like, I don't know.
You don't need nobody. Wait a minute. What do you mean you don't know? What's your take on Breaker?
Oh, he's great, but it's like he has that Steiner smell on him. You know what I mean? There's a Steiner smell. Mean? There's a Steiner smell. It's like the guy's too crazy to be with a woman. You know what I mean? He's just too crazy to be with a woman. Like, did you ever see Rick Steiner? Could you ever imagine Rick Steiner with a wife walking around, the mall?
What, barking at her for dinner?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. And Scott Steiner, I mean,
well,
come on.
He was the best. He was just like, throwing women like through walls and stuff. Like, the pleasure was all yours, you bitch. That guy was evil. Evil.
All right, dude. So on the documentary, there's a 5-part documentary on Vice. It's called "Who Killed WCW," and I don't think you've watched it. And forgive me if you have.
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good, kind of. I think they're trying to make more out of it.
5 parts.
It could be. Don't hold me to it. It could be 4 parts. I don't know. Part 2 was Part 2 was Wednesday or Tuesday. I'm sorry, and it's good though. It's not bad. Okay, but I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you some names, and I'm going to ask you where their contribution lied in the destruction of WCW, okay?
Go ahead.
Ted Turner.
It all starts at the top, obviously, but Ted Turner was never claimed to be a hands-on owner. He let others do the work for him. At the end of the day, it's his responsibility that the company failed. But I would say, God, I don't know how many names you're going to give me, but I would say not a large percentage is overall his fault, even though it was his brand and he owned it. He wasn't a hands-on guy. He let the inmates take care of things, but usually he delegated to somebody who he thought would be able to run it, not necessarily a wrestler or an inmate.
I'm surprised at your comments, though, because being the great Jet fan that you are, you hate, Woody, who's the owner of the Jets, and he's a total hands-off owner, just like you just mentioned Ted Turner. And you're a big, Woody hater. So why wouldn't Ted have more value in the destruction of WCW?
If you want to simultaneously do the Jets, I'll do that too and explain why Woody would have a percentage higher than everybody else instead of Ted Turner.
I'm not ready for Jet talk yet. It's the summertime. Let's just stick to wrestling.
Yeah. I like Woody's money. Go ahead.
Listen, I agree with you, right? Ted Turner, look, he gave, like Woody, he gives the person who's running it for him, here's your money, make it work. Do the job.
Right.
Do it for me.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Ted Turner has a healthy hand in the demise of WCW to get to the answer. He did enough to have a share, obviously.
Understood. But I am a big Ted Turner guy. I always respected him.
I like him too.
Number 2, Hall and Nash.
Probably a bigger behind-the-scene responsibility than Ted Turner. I would say so. They were, unfortunately, just from so many different accounts from other wrestlers, they unfortunately were the head inmates that ran that asylum. There was bullying. There was, dick measuring, obviously. There was everything that came with being in charge of the pack, for lack of a better term there. Someone's got to take care of the wolves, and they were running the wolves, and that's basically it. I think that a lot of people probably dreaded having to go into the same locker room with them. It could not have been fun if you weren't on their side. So behind the scenes, to me, they have a greater share of the burden in the demise of the company than Ted Turner himself behind the scenes.
So, our friend Sean Oliver, who runs the Click This podcast with Kevin Nash, I don't know how often you watch it, but it's one of my go-to.
I like it.
I do too. It's one of my go-to podcasts.
I like it.
But I'll make a statement about Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash is very intelligent, but my belief is Kevin Nash is one of those guys that is never wrong and never takes full blame for whatever he decides to do. The reason I say that, I've seen so many interviews with him, and obviously I watch him on the podcast, and, he seems to be one of these guys that's like, hey, I know I drove drunk, but not that he drove drunk. I'm using an example in case someone wants to report the channel, right? I am using a fake example. I know I drove drunk, but that can of beer had extra alcohol in it. I mean, that's a stupid example, but there's always a reason why. So when people talk about his poor booking decisions, and they talk about on the last episode, Eric Bischoff had enough, needed a break, and he gave Nash the book. And Nash has an excuse for the finger poke of doom, to taking the belt off of Goldberg, right? Here's the facts, in my opinion. It's all about the results. No matter how you get there. Either you get there because of your knowledge, you get there because you're completely lucky. It's the end result. And the fact of the matter is when Kevin Nash had the book, Kevin Nash failed extremely, terribly. And he also failed in TNA also. Do you agree with me there?
As a booker, I do agree. Absolutely. Of course he failed. And you know what's even funnier is what is Bischoff doing handing him the book anyway?
He said he said he felt comfortable with Nash's ideas in the industry. Again, we're going to get to Bischoff, and maybe you put more blame on him for giving the book to Kevin Nash.
There you go.
And I will blame Kevin Nash and Scott Hall tremendously for the fact that there's, like anybody else, they took care of themselves. And the end result, it was about themselves. It wasn't about the growth of the company. And when you've got individual players, as the great Greg Gagne said in the last interview, you're destined to fail in the end, right?
Right. Mike, one more thing about Nash, what is the one thing that people who think the way you described Kevin Nash, oh, there was more alcohol in that beer, he can never be wrong. What is the one thing they hate the most? Criticism, especially if it's on the internet. All right. I sometimes think that burns at Nash, and I don't blame him. He took his bumps in this business. He didn't have it easy in the beginning. He got to where he got to by, making sure that he played the game as hard and as rough as he could to get what he wanted to get. And he got it. So to his credit, he got it. But he gets slammed a lot by the internet community for not being a good in-ring wrestler. He takes a lot of shots, for, oh, he sneezed and he hurt his knee. He gets the, you're a pussy kind of thing they give to him. So I'm wondering when he answers about all this stuff, if he's got a huge chip on his shoulder about the internet.
Well, I think he's human, and I think like anybody else, you get defensive. Phil's asking, do you think that Nash did anything on purpose, sabotage? I'll answer this one, Jimmy, then you follow up, okay? This is what I think. I think when things were going good, Nash was going to take all the credit in the world. And when they went bad, Nash was about himself, and he was going to get as much money as he could, and he didn't give a shit anymore. He wasn't a team player. Kevin Nash was about Kevin Nash. Scott Hall was about Scott Hall. And they took no responsibility for any of their actions, clearly.
He ruined Goldberg. Goldberg was the one thing that they had going for them, the one homegrown thing that they had that was mega. And he ruined Goldberg. They had the NWO, was an amazing thing, and then they added everybody. Remember when we got the call to be in the NWO, Mike? We were like, okay, now you've gone too far.
Hey, good comment by a new. I don't think he's new, but Kevin Abruro says, wrestling is fake. Wrestling is fake and boring.
Why is he watching a wrestling show if wrestling is fake and boring? That's really weird.
I don't know. Maybe his life.
I don't want to.
Maybe his life is. These aren't his kids. These aren't his life.
Yeah, I don't want to fake anybody out, but that comment was boring.
Wait a minute, hold on. What's the lines of the song?
This is not my beautiful house.
There you go.
This is not my beautiful wife.
That's right. This isn't my fake wrestling.
Yourself, well, how did I get here?
My name isn't Kevin Abreu. My real name is Lee Cole.
Oh, very good. Very good. Now I'm really bored. Go ahead.
Wow. Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. Oh, boy. Obviously he gets some of the blame. However, I will say this. When Russo was around and trying to push Jeff Jarrett over Hulk Hogan, and yeah, I mean what I'm about to say, Booker T over Hulk Hogan. Now, because all of that was before Hulk Hogan returned and had that classic with The Rock at WrestleMania. So I knew Hogan. Look, Hogan has always had to defend and protect what he is about and what he is. And he stayed on top for a reason. There is no reason why he should ever lose to Jeff Jarrett. I don't want to hear it. All right? There is no reason why in the year 2000 he should lose to Booker T. Bullshit to that. Booker T was way, way off from being ready for that. And if Booker T had been ready for that, then wouldn't have history said so? He won the belt 5 times there, and the ratings continue to be less than Gilligan Island's reruns. All right? So, no. Hogan is responsible for allowing that culture in the back, for letting his boys, Hall and Nash, do all the shit they did. I mean, he could turn a blind eye. Maybe he wasn't the dick himself to deal out all the politics that happened in the back. He probably wasn't. He probably wasn't the guy walking up and going, making fun of or being belligerent towards him. That's not Hulk Hogan anyway. Hulk Hogan has a few small, circle of friends that he stayed tight with, and they wound up running everything down. And it was Hogan has responsibility here, but not higher than Hall and Nash behind the scenes. No way. I'm not buying that. He put over Goldberg when it was time. And then when he puts him over, oh, you didn't do it at the right time. You should have done it on the pay-per-view. Talk about always looking for something to criticize Hogan over, because that's what that all comes down to. And don't tell me he was not still main event guy in 1999, 2000, because in 2002, he's fighting The Rock in an all-time classic in front of 70,000 people who refused to boo him. No. The legacy's there whether you love it or hate it. Too effing bad if you hate him. That's the way it goes. But was he responsible for some of this shit? Hell yeah. Of course he was.
Can't even add on to that, Jimmy. You hit it right in the head. I can't agree more. Eric Bischoff.
He's the guy most responsible.
Wow, really?
He's the guy. He's the guy most. Well, you know what? You have one more name. I'm hoping you're going to mention.
Actually, I have two. I actually have two, and I'm going to tell you the last name to me is the guy that's most responsible. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know what? I might have to correct my statement anyway. But there is one who I feel is worse than Bischoff. So he's next to the top of the biggest reasons. He's also the reason why they won for 83 weeks. So massive respect up front to Eric Bischoff before I say some of the mean things I'm going to say. Eric Bischoff is the guy who somehow found a way to conquer Vince for 83 weeks, but he did it with Vince's guys, one way or the other. Goldberg came onto the scene afterwards, and they ruined that. Bischoff let the inmates run the asylum. Made a lot of mistakes doing that, gave ridiculous contracts, people sitting at home. He created a very lazy company that way, only listening to one or two voices and ignoring everybody else, And oddly enough, Ric Flair wouldn't have been a great voice to listen to either, because we see how he's come along over the years, all right? But he needed more wrestling people.
Now, Maria Davis says she agrees with you 100%. Eric Bischoff is the reason.
Yeah, real wrestling minds. And Bischoff did not have he did not have a pure wrestling mind. He had a great business mind, but he also had a massive ego that took him on a rock and roll trip. And Hogan, Nash, and Hall were in the band with him. This was his band, his ego, And it's a shame, but that's the way it goes. At the end of the day, the smarter guy won. And oddly enough, the smarter guy has an even bigger ego, but the smarter guy won. Period. So Bischoff is very responsible. Very responsible. I put him right at the top.
So I agree with you. Great business mind. The one thing, everything you said, spot on. The one thing you didn't mention, though, that is a main driver to all of this in any type of business, Bischoff proved that he's not a leader. And when you can't be a leader, you can't run a business. Follow, right?
I agree. I agree with that.
So the one thing you can't, you can teach leadership, but you have to teach leadership through experience. And Bischoff never had that experience of leadership. And I agree with you. Bischoff is the main driver to their success and one of the main drivers to the failure. All right.
Yep.
Vince Russo.
To me, he's the nail in the coffin. He's the nail in the coffin. Pretty much, because his booking was ridiculous, coming in and doing all the things he did and trying to turn, without the Vince McMahon filter, it's been proven Vince Russo just absolutely drove that company into the ground. I never knew what kind of traffic accident I'd be watching from week to week. It was a real mess. It was an absolute mess. And he clearly, it's funny that to this day, he has an audience of pro wrestling fans that like to hear his opinions on wrestling, but the guy has No, he look. I'm not going to take away his life experiences, and he obviously made some friends in the business and stuff like that. This is not a wrestling lifer guy. No matter what he says, he didn't give a shit about wrestling. He wanted to put on a soap opera, Crash TV. I didn't want to see that every week. I didn't want to see that at all. And then he just log jammed all the new guys like we're supposed to instantly fall in love with them without any character development or storylines. He had no concept for what a pro wrestling fan wants to watch. And it was the end.
I think it worked for the time, but once he was on his own, it failed miserably.
Yeah. It was the end.
He just, again, Jerry Springer for that short minute, Morton Downey Jr. for the short minute was a success, but eventually that story became old. And the same thing happened with Vince Russo's writing, right?
Mike, before you switch on to the next person, I got to ask you, in the Attitude Era, because my answer might be different from yours, in the Attitude Era, the true main eventers, the true, The Rock, Mankind, Undertaker, Foley, what to you was the sex angle of the Attitude Era? Was it an additive or was it a preservative? I say long term, it was an additive. It was something that was thrown in during the shows. Sure, you saw puppies, or they did whatever they could sexually to push the. Yeah, DX would say, suck it. But that was usually, was it the preservative of the Attitude Era? I don't think so. I think Mick Foley crashing off the top of Hell in a Cell. I think The Rock with his programs with Austin. I think of Mr. McMahon with the Kiss My Ass Club. I think that those were the preservatives, not necessarily puppies, if you understand what I'm getting at.
I think Vince Russo, you're right, was the end of. Very good comments, dude. Very good comments. All right, next up, Vince McMahon.
Responsible for the demise of WCW? Well, I guess in the end, he is the most responsible because he killed them. So I would say that Vince McMahon probably is the most responsible. He came up with the game plan and he, applied it. He created his own big stars. I would say Vince McMahon is the big reason. He's probably the biggest reason of all because after all, he killed that shark. He took it out.
I think McMahon was the one who destroyed WCW, bro. I think his talents and his knowledge are what did it.
Yeah, absolutely. He was the man with a plan. And he also had the right guys, and he knew what to do with the right guys. Because on the surface, in the beginning, those right guys weren't the right guys. They didn't come there as Stone Cold Steve Austin. They didn't come there as Mankind. They showed up as Rocky Maivia with the little island stuff around his neck and stuff. It was Vince McMahon who figured out what to do with these guys and turned them into the megastars that they became. So he countered by creating from within. He had been initially conquered for 83 weeks by another company that conquered from without.
Right.
They took them from other places. They took the stars that Vince had. Vince, it's the most impressive thing ever when you think about it. Vince took homegrown or imported talent that had never been packaged a certain way, repackaged them, and delivered and conquered. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Vince McMahon is most responsible, and thank you for it, Vince, because WCW had become an absolute joke.
Beautiful. Beautiful. 100%. And finally, Time Warner. Now, mind you, on the second part of the series, they explain how they filtered money. So say Time Warner was making all this money, right? And certain department heads were pushing the money towards WCW. So, like, one prime example was if WCW was selling $10 million worth of T-shirts, they would take this profit from the $10 million and filter to other departments, but the expense went against WCW.
Well, if you look back on Turner's career, it's kind of lame that he did this earlier with Georgia Championship Wrestling. He never fully appreciated. I don't know if Ted Turner fully understands that the rest of the country gravitated to the Superstation TBS on cable television. Once that channel was able to go to cable television, it's Georgia Championship Wrestling and the Atlanta Braves were the two major things that made people, especially our people, our generation, tune into that station. There's a lot of Braves fans across the country, and there was a shitload of wrestling fans just like you and me, whether we were in New York or Phil up in Boston or Maria over in Pittsburgh or, Chubby Tortello out in San Francisco. We were all watching that. And what does he do? He sells the time slot to the competitor, and we get the Black Saturday and stuff like that. I don't think Ted Turner ever fully, appreciated just how important wrestling was to his empire. So we get what we get.
I think Ted did, or at least he loved it enough. I think Time Warner didn't get it. I think the biggest problem, though, Jimmy, honestly, with WCW, and I think Dan and Benny on their show on Tuesday night mentioned it, was they didn't do house shows. So when WCW was beating them in the ratings, the one thing that WWF was able to do was house shows, and they made money off of house shows. WCW didn't do house shows, and house shows are important, dude. You go to signings. I think your wife is going to a signing in a couple of weeks, right? In August or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
She's doing signings. People love to go see the stars. And again, guys, a house show is when you have that opportunity to see, it's like going to a Yankee game live. It's like whatever. It's like you get to see these stars live. And you can make money from it. I think the game's changed, right? Back in the day, you used to have to rent out the arena, pay the arena, and then you only got a portion of the house. Now it's like they pay you to bring fans in, and they get all the concessions or what. Listen, I don't know the whole ins and outs, but that is a downfall of AEW, dude. They want to be a television program. I don't think wrestling as a television program is successful. Yeah, plenty of money, but there's more money to be made, right? Merchandising, live house shows, meet and greets, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. You got to keep the product out there. You got to constantly remind people about it. Wrestling is not as popular as it even is today. I don't think it's something that they should ever take for granted, its level of popularity. If something is working, and house shows have worked for years, then keep doing it. It's not a surprise WCW wasn't doing house shows. The inmates were running the asylum. I don't want to work today, and I can get this big fat paycheck and not work. Why am I going to work?
Hey, Matt Sharkey says, pretty good comment. It's not just what McMahon did, but what he did behind the scenes. He took out the territory systematically and did it with the boy toy. The one thing I got to say is if Vince didn't do this, someone else would have, right? Eventually someone would have. And the only one that was smart enough, I believe at the time, and could get past themselves was Fritz von Erich. Fritz von Erich got it. He just didn't. Unfortunately, his boys had some real emotional problems. I was talking to my wife about the Von Erichs because I'm on a Von Erich kick, dude, right now. I just there's so much into that whole thing. And I was thinking about, because you and I have had this discussion, and we had the great Bob Cook on a couple of weeks ago, and Bob kind of took your stance, and correct me if I'm wrong, that suicide, it takes a man to commit suicide because that's a very difficult thing to do. And I always took the stance that it was very selfish. We've had these conversations, right? Am I fair to say that's your stance on suicide?
My stance on that is both. And I wouldn't even word it the way you worded it. It doesn't take a man. Men and women both do this, obviously.
Right.
It takes some sort of fucking courageous level that I don't understand. I can't get myself to that point, to do something like that to myself. Is it selfish to do? Yes. So it's both. It's really both. I mean, that is one tough. I cannot picture doing it. You really got to not be afraid of the other side for shit.
Well,
sure.
that's what I wanted to talk. You're really smart because that's what I wanted to ask you. I said to my wife, with everything those boys went through and what they decided to do, the one thing I said to myself is, man, did they have faith in God? Because they were sure they were going to see their brothers on the other side. They were sure there was something after this life. And that in itself is a testament, isn't it, to who they were, I think.
That's a very different way of looking at it. That you could say that takes immeasurable faith. I tend to lean the other way. I don't think you're supposed to take yourself until God says it's time for you to go.
Understood.
But that's how I feel about it. Look, there's people who've been through much worse than me. And yeah, I get depressed, obviously. I mean, hell, you've got Angry Pharaoh, right? The last couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
I get depressed, but I don't get to that point because I do think it's selfish. And I honestly feel like I'd be in big, big trouble with the principal. I don't think it's,
I'm on agreement with you. I remember when Scott Hall was in studio, right? He used to say, we talked about Ashley Massaro's suicide, right? And I remember Scott Hall's word. He wanted no heat with God. Remember that?
Right.
No heat with God. Pretty amazing statement, right?
Right. I mean, I'm sure we both know people who've been through much worse than us. So I think to myself, you know what? Not to get, oh God, I can't believe we're talking about this. Not to get too deep, but this is deep. When I think about the preacher from Nazareth and how he was dragged through the streets all that Friday and beaten and stoned and whipped and had things pulled out of his insides practically, and then he gets crucified. I think I can deal with my problems.
Well said.
Does that make any sense to you?
Well said. And the other thing I think about too, Jimmy, I feel like when people involve drugs in their decisions, their minds become warped, and it becomes easier to do such an act like committing suicide, right? Because your mind's not completely there, right? It's like
I think it depends on what sort of drug we're talking about. I hate blaming drugs for choices because at the beginning of the point of origin is a choice. If you choose to do drugs and then you choose to kill yourself, what's going to get blamed? The drugs are going to take your choices off the hook? Not in my mind.
Jimmy, goes back to the show what we said about Kevin Nash, right? You make a decision, you got to own the decision and not blame everything else that, it's all about the end result. Listen, dude, you're really spot on tonight. Maybe Angry Pharaoh's the way to go because you have not missed one question. I mean, I could not disagree with anything you've said tonight.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
that. Don't thank me. You're the one saying it. I disagree with you if I did, but I'm finding myself in full agreement. Listen, we're going to call it. We'll see each other at 9 o'clock for the main show. We'll open up. We'll talk about last week's interview, and then we've got the great Hollywood from Glow. This will be great, dude. We are rolling. We've got Glow on, and then next week, we've got Wendy Richter, which, I mean, come on. Come on. Come on, bro.
I mean, in the last few weeks with Gagne and now Rockin' Robin, and now you're telling me that basically one of the most important wrestlers in the history of the business as to what she meant and to what it set in motion. You're talking Wendy Richter. I mean, Mike, is Cyndi Lauper coming on soon? I mean, what's going on here?
Listen, dude, you know what? You're pretty psychic lately because I got something up my sleeve, bro. And this may be amazing next Thursday. That's all I got to say. Let me put it this way. It's not going to be Justin Race, that's for sure.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, you know what? If you're lost, you can look and you will find me time after time.
Wonderful. And I get, who better to lead us into Wendy Richter than the great Hollywood from Glow?
Oh, my God. Off the charts, bro. We are absolutely off the charts currently. Let's keep going.
Now, I got to say something about her, right? Jeannie. I don't know if I should call her Jeannie or Hollywood. I think I'm going to call her Hollywood. But
yeah,
she might be the most nicest person in the history of people, dude. Like, she's so nice.
Well, I mean, I know that you've been talking to her for probably a couple years now, right? And I haven't gotten the phone call that she hung up on you. She's got to be nice.
Yeah, she hasn't called me screaming at me yet, which seems to happen quite often, right?
Perfect. Yeah, very good.
All right, guys, I want to say we love you guys for joining us on Thursday for This Week in Wrestling. Please join us at 9 o'clock for the great Hollywood. Jimmy, last time you were on a little bit of a hiatus when Hollywood was in studio. Now you finally get to meet her in person. I got to tell you, she lives up to her name plus some.
Nice. It's always good to meet your heroes when they're actually cool.
Yeah, right?
There you go.
All right, send us out, Mr. Pharaoh.
You've been watching This Week in Wrestling, and we will see you at 9, 8 Central with Hollywood. Later.